The common squirrel is quite widespread throughout the territory of our country, therefore, the common squirrel has been known to many since childhood. This cute creature is very fond of nuts and has a rather peaceful character. Currently, this animal is also found within the city, especially in the park area. Description: this rodent represents the family of squirrels and has another name, Vexia, although very few people use it in our time. There are up to 30 species of this family in the world, distributed throughout the globe, and only the common squirrel lives in our open spaces. Appearance: the squirrel is a rather nimble animal with a slender proportional body, at the end of which you can see a rather long and fluffy tail, 13 to 19 centimeters long, which reaches 2/3 of the entire body length. Proteins of all kinds, including common protein, have common features. The tail appears to be flattened due to long hairs sticking out in different directions. This rodent grows in length up to a maximum of 30 centimeters, while gaining a weight of no more than 400 grams. The squirrel has a round head with dark beady eyes, as well as long ears, at the end of which there are tassels sticking up, which become more noticeable in winter. The bristles are highly sensitive and adorn both the muzzle and the forelegs with the abdomen. The squirrel's belly is always lighter or has a purely white tint compared to the upper part of the animal. The hind limbs of the squirrel are much longer than the front ones, while all paws are armed with rather sharp and tenacious claws. It's important to know: the overall size of the common squirrel depends on the habitat. The farther north the region is, the smaller the animal is. The same can be said about the color of the squirrel, which becomes lighter towards the north. Before the onset of winter, the squirrel grows rather tall and thick fur, which cannot be said about the summer period, when its fur is short, sparse and hard. Color: the color of the common squirrel can vary over a fairly wide range, depending on the season, subspecies, and even depending on the population boundaries of individual species. In summer, the color of the coat is distinguished by darker tones, kept in brown, red or dark brown shades. In winter, their color is more like gray shades, and sometimes almost black. Among squirrels, there are individuals whose wool is diluted with light spots, piebald, as well as individuals with almost black fur, melanists, or specimens devoid of color, albinos. Far Eastern, Carpathian, and Manchu subspecies are distinguished by more brown tones, including more black ones, especially in winter. Tellot squirrels, which are the largest subspecies of squirrels inhabiting our territory, have a silvery gray, pale gray or bluish color in winter. Tellot squirrels are also called gray-tailed squirrels due to the color of their tail in winter. Molting: the squirrel, like many other animals with fur, sheds 2 times a year, while the tail changes its coat only once a year. As a rule, the molting process takes place in spring, in April, May and in autumn, and September-November. The molting process in animals is controlled by the length of daylight hours, which affects the function of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland begins to produce thyrotropin, which affects the function of the thyroid gland, and it starts the molting process. Interesting facts: adult males always begin to molt earlier than adult females, as well as juveniles that were born in the current year. Molt in spring begins from the head, and autumn molt from the tail. Molting periods can fluctuate depending on the availability of food resources, as well as the temperature regimes of the region. If there is a food base, the molt process starts earlier and ends earlier, and if there is a lack of food, this process can stretch for an indefinite time. Lifestyle and behavior: the common squirrel does not mark its territory, like some animals, therefore several individuals can live on the same territory. The squirrel prefers to spend most of its time in the trees, while this rodent is most active in the morning and evening hours. At this time of day, she is busy looking for food for herself, spending almost all her free time on it. In case of danger, the animal hides in the crown of trees. The squirrel easily jumps from tree to tree, overcoming in a straight line up to 4 meters, and in a descending arc of at least 15 meters. Her tail serves as a rudder. In winter, it moves more through trees, and during the mating season, as well as when there is no snow, it can move along the ground, jumping up to 1 meter in length. In the wilderness, when frosts or heavy snowfalls with blizzards are on the street, the common squirrel is in its shelter, while it can leave it only in case of severe hunger. Habitat: almost everyone knows that squirrels live in trees. At the same time, they are looking for trees with hollows, where they equip a home for themselves. To do this, they fill the hollow with lichen, dry grass and leaves. The nest can be up to 15 meters high, among dense branches. The diameter of the nest reaches more than 30 centimeters and has the shape of a ball. Interesting to know: squirrels often occupy the nests of various birds so as not to waste time building their nests. The males, all the more, do not engage in this responsible business, but settle in the nests left by the females, as well as in the nests left by various birds. Experts notice that each squirrel has several nests, moving from one nest to another every few days. The female drags her offspring in her teeth. In winter, several individuals can live in one nest, although they prefer to lead a secluded lifestyle. Squirrels are cute fluffy creatures, always cheerful and active. It seems that, if you get this animal at home, then a solid holiday will come. Is it really so? What conditions will have to be created for a comfortable life of squirrels in captivity, and how do they themselves relate to domestication? In most cases, the squirrel, which kids in the park love to feed from the hand, is completely unsuitable for keeping as a pet, or rather, about 90% of squirrels are not suitable for this. 90 out of 100 animals will sooner or later bite or scratch their owner or his family members very hard. And only the remaining 10 squirrels, tamed at a young age, may become really cute, affectionate animals. Squirrels have a very unpredictable nature. They are prone to regular mood swings, which depend on hormonal levels. During such periods, they are extremely cruel to everyone whom they consider unnecessary on their territory, especially if they are in a confined space. When a squirrel takes root in a new place, for example, in an apartment, it begins to feel like a full-fledged mistress. All other people and animals are only guests in her house, sometimes welcome, and sometimes completely unnecessary. It is also worth remembering that around the squirrel cage there will always be very unaesthetic, some gastronomic chaos, an unpleasant smell is inevitable, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the frequency of cleaning. In addition, squirrels shed almost all year round, so people prone to allergies or asthma will have to give up the idea of keeping a ginger creature. Of course, there is another side to the coin. Tame squirrels are very sociable creatures. They allow themselves to be stroked, sleep in the owner's arms, and respond to a name or familiar sounds. A squirrel needs a fairly large cage with strong rods, at least 60 by 60 centimeters in size, and 1.5 meters high. Sometimes the entire loggia or balcony is converted to keep the red-tailed. A squirrel is strongly discouraged from having families with children. Their persistent desire to caress the animal can turn into dire consequences. Homemade squirrels will have to offer a very varied menu, which will not be cheap. Hazelnuts, walnuts, pine nuts and peanuts, chestnuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, vegetables and fruits, dry mushrooms. Cones and needles should be at the squirrel and will. All this can be bought in a specialized store or assembled by yourself. It is very important not to overfeed the rodent. In nature, they spend a lot of energy looking for food, but in an apartment they do not have to strain, so extra grams are collected in a matter of weeks. Any food for protein should not be fried or salted, nuts only in shells, only walnuts can be cracked a little. Literally without a few vital foods in the diet, the animal will start to get sick, become weak and die in agony. And by the way, you will have to allocate a full-fledged closet for squirrel stocks at home. Points worth paying attention to when buying. The cost of squirrel ranges from $70 to $150. In addition to this, significant costs will be required for the maintenance and purchase of an overall enclosure with all the associated equipment. There are very few specialists who are able to provide the squirrel with qualified veterinary care, even in large cities, and there is no need to talk about sparsely populated areas. When buying the smallest animal, it is impossible to predict whether it will be tame and cute or will remain a wild animal. Even if the squirrel has its own large cage, it needs long walks around the apartment. As a result, the whole house will turn into a single squirrel aviary with stripes from claws on furniture and wallpaper, scattered and gnawed things. In addition, in the most unpredictable secluded places, squirrels will certainly collect food supplies. Not all proteins are clean and meet their needs in the designated area.